Years of inner struggle, suffering, and seemingly futile spiritual striving had eventually culminated in a state of black despair. Even a retreat into atheism had not brought relief from the ceaseless quest. Reason and intellect were too frail for the formidable task of finding the ultimate truth. The mind itself had been led to a final, agonizing, crushing defeat. Even the will had been stilled. Then an inner voice cried out, "If there is a God, I ask him for help." Then all ceased and disappeared into oblivion. The mind and all sense of a personal self disappeared. In a stunning moment, it had been replaced by an infinite, all-encompassing awareness which was radiant, complete, total, silent, and still as the promised essence of all that is. The exquisite splendor, beauty, and peace of divinity shone forth. It was autonomous, final, timeless, perfect, the self of the manifest and the unmanifest, the supreme Godhead, and thus was set forth the presence. A hushed silence pervades the surroundings, and motion itself slows and becomes still. All things radiate forth an intense aliveness. Each is aware of every other. The luminous quality of the radiance is overwhelmingly divine in nature. It completely includes everything in its total oneness, so that all things are interconnected and in communication and harmony by means of awareness, and by sharing the basic quality of the essence of existence itself. The presence is a continuum that completely occupies what had appeared previously to ordinary perception as vacant, empty space. That inner awareness is not different from the self. It pervades the essence of everything. Awareness is aware of its own awareness and omnipresence. Existence and its expression as both form and formlessness is God, and prevails equally in all objects, persons, plants, and animals. Everything is united by the divinity of existence. The pervasive essence includes everything without exception. The furnishings in the room are equal to rocks or plants in their importance or significance. Nothing is excluded from the allness, which is all-encompassing, total, complete, and lacking in nothing. All is of equal value because the only real value is the divinity of existence. That which is the self is total and complete. It is equally present everywhere. There are no needs, desires, or lack. Neither imperfection nor discord is possible, and every object stands forth like a work of art, a piece of sculpture in perfect beauty and harmony. The holiness of all creation is the reverence held by everything for everything else. All is imbued with a great splendor, and everything is silenced in awe and reverence. The revelation instills an infinite peace and stillness. A glance at the body reveals it to be the same as everything else, unowned, unpossessed by an individual, equal to the furniture or other objects, and merely part of all that is. There is nothing personal about the body, and there is no identification with it. It moves about spontaneously, correctly executes its bodily functions, and effortlessly walks and breathes. It is self-propelled, and its actions are determined and activated by the presence. The body is merely an it, equal to any other living and equal to any other thing in the room. When addressed by other persons, the body's voice responds appropriately. But what is heard in the discussion resonates at a higher level of meaning. The deeper and more profound meaning is revealed in every sentence. All communication is now understood at a deeper level, almost as though each simple sounding question is actually an existential question and statement about mankind itself. On the surface, the wording sounds superficial, but on the deeper level, there are profound spiritual implications. Appropriate responses are given by the body, which everyone assumes is a me that they are talking to. This in itself is strange because there is no actual me associated with this body at all. The real self is invisible and has no locality. The body speaks and answers questions simultaneously in parallel ways on two levels at the same time. Stilled by the silence of the presence, the mind is silent and wordless. No images, concepts, or thoughts ever occur. There is no one to think them. With no person present, there is neither thinker nor doer. All is happening of itself as an aspect of the presence. In ordinary states of consciousness, sound prevails over a background of silence and replaces it. In contrast, in the presence, the opposite occurs. Although sound is perceptible, it is in the background. The silence prevails so that the silence is actually not interrupted or displaced by the sound. Nothing disturbs the stillness or interferes with its peace. Although movement occurs, it does not disturb the motionless stillness which is beyond, yet inclusive of motion. Everything appears to move as though in slow motion because time is absent. There is only a continuous state of now. There are neither events nor happenings because all starts and stops. All beginnings and endings occur only in the dualistic consciousness of an observer. In their absence, there is no succession of events to be described or explained. Instead of thinkingness, there is a self-revealing knowingness that imparts complete understanding and is self-explanatory by its self-effulgent essence. It is as though everything speaks silently and presents itself in its entirety in the absolute beauty of its perfection. In so doing, it manifests its glory and reveals its intrinsic divinity. The suffusion of the presence throughout the totality and essence of all that exists is exquisite in its gentleness, and its touch is like a meltingness. The inner self is its very core. In the ordinary world, only the surfaces of things can be touched, but in the presence, it is the innermost essence of everything that is interspersed with every other thing. This touch, which is the hand of God in its soft gentleness, is at the same time an expression and the abode of infinite power. In its contact with the inner essence of everything, one is aware that the presence is being felt by every other thing, object, or person. The power of this gentleness is unlimited, and because in its total and all present, no opposition is possible. It pervades all that is, and out of its power arises existence itself, which is both created by the power and at the same time held together by it. That power is an intrinsic quality of the presence, and its presence is the essence of existence itself. It is equally present in all objects. There is no emptiness anywhere, as the presence fills all of space and the objects in it. Every leaf knows how it is being experienced by everything else and shares in the joy of the divine presence. All things are in a state of silent rejoicing, that their consciousness is an experience of divinity. Unique to all things is a still, ever-present gratitude that it has been granted the gift of experiencing the presence of God. This gratitude is the form in which worship is expressed. All that is created has existence, and has existence shares in reflecting the glory of God. Human appearance has taken on a whole new aura. The one self shines forth through everyone's eyes. A radiance shines forth from everyone's face. Everyone is equally beautiful. Most difficult to describe is the interaction among people that moves onto a different level of communication. There is obvious love among everyone. Their speech, however, has changed so that all conversation has become loving and peaceful. The meaning of the words that are heard is not the same as others hear. It is as though there are two different levels of consciousness going on, coming out of the same scenario of form and movement. Two different scripts are being spoken via the same words. The meanings of the words themselves have been transformed onto a different plane by the highest selves of the people involved with each other, and the communication of understanding is on a higher plane. At the same time, it is clear that the lower selves of the people are unaware of the communication simultaneously going on with their higher selves. People are as though hypnotized into believing the reality of the ordinary selves, which is merely the unwitting acting out of scenarios or roles as in a movie. By ignoring the lesser selves, the higher selves address each other directly, and the person's ordinary selves appear to be unaware of this ongoing higher level of communication. At the same time, people are sensing intuitively that something different from the ordinary is happening. The conscious presence of the self creates an energy field, which people find extremely pleasurable. It is this energy field which performs the miraculous and brings occurrences into harmony, along with a sense of peace to all who experience it. Visitors who had traveled many miles to ask questions suddenly know, in the presence of that aura, the answers which came about through an inner understanding that made the original question irrelevant. This occurred because the presence recontextualized the illusion of a problem and thus caused it to disappear. The body continued in its operation and reflected the intentions transmitted through consciousness. The continuance of the body was not of any great interest, and it was clear that the body is actually the property of the universe. The bodies and objects in the world reflect endless variation and are without imperfection. Nothing is better or worse than anything else, nor is it of different value or significance. The quality of perfect self-identity defines the intrinsic worth of all that exists as equal expressions of innate divinity. Insomuch as relationship is a concept of dualistic mental observation, in reality there are no relationships. Everything merely is and exhibits the beingness of existence. Similarly, without the interposition of a functioning observer, with its innate categorization of though, there is neither change nor movement to be explained or described. Each thing is merely evolving as an expression of its divine essence. Evolution, therefore, takes place as a manifestation of consciousness, and it takes expression from higher energy, abstract levels to lesser but more specific forms, and finally into physical materiality. Thus, creation manifests from the abstract formless through progressive form into a final energy pattern, and then into concrete materiality. The power to become manifest is the expression of divine omnipotence as continuous creation. Creation is the present and the now. This now is continuous so that neither beginnings nor endings are possible. Visibility, or materiality itself, is merely a sensory phenomenon and not a necessary condition for existence, which is in itself formless, yet intrinsic to all form. Because everything is always in the process of creation, it means that everything is an expression of divinity, or it would not have the capacity of existence at all. The realization that everything that exists reflects the divinity of creation is why it is worthy of respect and reverence. This accounts for the reverence for the spirit within all living beings and nature, which is characteristic of many cultures. All sentient beings are equal. Only material manifestation is subject to cessation, and essence is unaffected and retains the potentiality of reappearing in material form. Essence is affected only by the forces of evolution itself. The emergence of material form from essence is influenced by the presence of that which is already in form. The content of material manifestation may therefore facilitate essence manifesting as form, or it may not be favorable, depending on conditions. One might say that creation fulfills its own inner divine instructions or tendencies. Traditionally, this tendency has been called destiny, which is the unfolding of the potentiality and the reflection of pre-existing conditions. The classical Sanskrit gunas of rajas, sattva, and tamas, or action, awareness, and resistance. Thus, man can influence conditions in order to potentiate the manifestation of desired eventualities. Through choices, human consciousness can influence outcomes, but the power of creation is the province of God. The nature of creation, which is beyond time, space, and causality, is self-revealing and presents itself to the consciousness of awareness as a gift of the presence. All things are intrinsically holy in the divinity of their creation. When the criticalness and discrimination of dualistic perception are set aside, the absolute perfection and beauty of everything stands revealed. Art seeks to abstract this awareness when it takes one moment in time and freezes it in photographic art or sculpture. Each stop frame depicts the perfection that can be appreciated only when a single view is isolated from the distortion of the superimposed story. The drama of every moment of existence lends itself to preservation when art saves it from the extinction of transformation of material form called history. The innocence intrinsic to any given moment is apparent when that moment is taken out of the context projected onto a sequence of selected moments which then become a story. Once converted into a story by the dualistic mind, the terms good or bad are then applied. One can readily see that even the terms good or bad refer in their origination to what is really merely human desire. If something is desired, it becomes good, and if undesired, it becomes bad. If human judgmentalism is removed from observation, all that can be seen is neither intrinsically desirable nor undesirable. Everything is manifesting in its inherent potentiality as determined by its essence and prevailing conditions. The splendor of all things is that by their very existence, they manifest the glory of God's creation as existence itself. By virtue of merely being, each and every sentient and non-sentient thing that exists is fulfilling the will of God. It is because of divine intention that the unmanifest becomes manifest. Creation is the name of the process that we witness. Because the nature of creation is not apparent to ordinary consciousness, the mind manufactures conundrums which have no answers. For example, how can a good God allow so much that is bad? Beyond dualistic perception and arbitrary categories of manifestation, there is neither good nor bad to be explained. And it can be seen that the universe itself is harmless. The human mind constructs its scenarios of goals and desires, and events are either concordant with them or not. Both tragedy and victory occur only within the limitations of the dualistic mind and have no independent reality. Everything in this world seems to arise and then dissolve within the limitations of the dualistic mind and have no independent reality. Everything in this world seems to arise and then dissolve within the limitations of perception. Insomuch as reality is beyond time, space, and form, it is immaterial whether a thing or a person exists for a split second or for 1,000 years. Thus, the struggle to live a few more years or even a few more moments appears to be an empty illusion because existence is now experienced within time at all. This moment is the only reality that is being experienced. All else is an abstraction and a mental construct. Therefore, one cannot actually live 70 years at all. Only this exact fleeting moment is possible. In the reality of non-duality, everything is complete, and desire is replaced by appreciation. As life evolves, each living thing is the total expression of its potentiality at any given moment. Motivation, as such, disappears, and action takes place as a phase in the process of potentiality actualizing. There is, therefore, no actor behind the action. There is, instead, a sense of completeness and total fulfillment in each moment. Enjoyment of physical needs is the product of action itself. The appetite for eating, for example, arises out of the act of eating, with no prior desire for the next bite. If eating is stopped by an interruption, there is no feeling of loss. The joy of life originates out of one's existence at any moment, at any given moment. And the awareness of continuous completion is an aspect of the joy of existence. The totality of the oneness of the all cannot be experienced. Instead, it is known by virtue of being it. The I of the self is the I of God, witnessing the unfolding of creation as now. Sequence is an illusion created by the perception of the I of the ego, which is the point of observation of the processing of the non-local to the local, of the non-linear to the linear, allness to thisness. Perception is the I of the ego, which, as it translates the unexperienceable infinite to the experienceable finite, produces the perception of time, place, duration, dimension, position, form, limitation, and singularity. Namaste, namaskaram.